Hello everyone, greetings from PayTabs technical support team. In this series, you will learn how to integrate with PayTabs through our PT2 API endpoints. And here, we will walk you through the third integration type, which is the managed form. For the purpose of this series, we have created a very simple Laravel project to walk you through the integration process. But feel free to follow the steps in this series with your own project, whatever the programming language or the framework used to integrate with PayTabs. So, let's get started. In this video, we are going to learn more about one of our follow-up transaction or our managed transaction, which is the capture transaction. So, let's get started. The first thing you should know is that you can find the full documentation for this part inside PayTab support portal under the article called the Managed Form APIs Integration Manual. Now from the integration manual, if you navigated to step 7 over here, which is manage transaction, you can see that this step is dedicated to manage your already existed transaction. So whenever you have a transaction and you want to make a follow-up on this transaction, like refund it, maybe query it and get its details, or in this case to capture and void it, so this is the step that you want to check. And before we start, please note that we highly recommend you to check our solution article, What is Transaction Type, to know the differences between our transaction type. In this video, we are going to learn how we can capture a transaction. Now, for the capture a transaction and for the void transaction, these are two follow-up transactions that done upon auth transaction only, which is this type. And as you can see, normally we're using the sale transaction, and for the sale transaction, this means that the amount of this transaction will be deducted directly from the customer. However, for the auth transaction, this means that the amount of the purchase will be deducted from the cardholder's bank account, and it will be held inside this bank account for, or actually this the customer bank for a certain period of days. This amount will remain at the cardholder bank until you either capture it or void it. By capture it mean transfer it to your bank account, and by void mean to return it back to the customer account. So here in this video we are going to learn how we can capture a transaction. So you can check out this solution article, which will guide you through how you can do that. And simply, you are going to send a payment request to our payment request API. You will use the domain according to your region, and we will send our regular request payload. And this time it will contain the transaction reference that you want to capture. So as you can see, first we need to have a transaction. And this transaction needs to be of type auth. And this is what we are going to do. We are going to initiate a normal payment transaction, but first we need to make sure that the transaction type is auth. I'm going to change it over here to auth. Now I'm going to initiate a normal transaction. As you can see inside my managed form request payload over here, you can see that I have return, I have a callback over here, which is a webhook URL that I will get the transaction response in. So now I'm going to initiate a normal payment. I'll use one of my test cards. Here we go. And let's check it out. Now I have a transaction. If you can check over here, it's type with auth. Inside the transaction type is auth, and inside my callback response you will see the transaction type over here is auth. Now this is the transaction reference that I'm going to capture the amount for. So this transaction amount was 100 USD dollars. That means I can capture the whole 100, or I can capture part of this 100, which is called partial capture. So simply, we are going to use this request payload. We are going to set the transaction reference, and here inside the cart amount, we are going to provide either the whole cart amount that we want to capture, which is the 100 USD dollar, or we are going to only provide part of this amount, which is like $50 or $75, something like that, what suits your business. So here we have created the same request payload, as you can see, that generate capture payload. We have over here all these details where we get it from the front end, but The transaction type is capture. I'm getting the profile ID from my environment file. I'm getting my transaction class from the config file, which is a normal transaction type. It's class, ecom transaction class, sorry, which is ecom. Now for the cart ID, it's normal. You can use any cart ID, but for the cart currency and the cart amount, as we said, you need to use the same currency and you need to provide the cart amount which is equal to the same transaction amount or less than it. We can't, of course, capture more than the cart amount of this transaction reference. So now I have created a simple payload. I have provided a callback URL so I can get the response of this payment. And as you can see, the transaction type must be captured. And inside my front end, you can see that I have created a simple front end where I provide a transaction reference and I provide the capture amount. So we are going to take this transaction reference. We are going to paste it over here, and we said that we can either, as the payment amount was 100, so we can either capture like the full 100 or less. So I'm going to capture 50% of this transaction, which is 50 USD dollar, and I'm going to capture it. And we've got an error, which is, let's see, the payment result. It's decide currency mismatch, and this means that I have used not the same currency. As you can see here, the card currency is EGB. So inside my code over here, I'm going to navigate to my capture blade, and you can see inside the capture blade over here that I am providing the card currency as EGB. So I'm going to change it to USD. I'm going to save it as that, and let's try out this again. This time I'm going to paste the transaction reference. I'm going to set the amount of 50. Let's capture it. Now we have it authorized, it's captured, and I can see over here I have got another response. It's for cart amount of 50. The transaction type should be capture, which is transaction type is capture, the transaction class is ecom, the payment result is authorized, and everything is working fine. This is how you can capture a transaction. Now we can move to the next part.